Hello! If you're new here, my name is Shelly, and if you like discussing things about true crime, serial killers, and conspiracy theories, and you also like to talk about makeup, then you have come to the right place. Welcome home, darling. Today's episode is another day of 13 days of Shelloween. Every year I do a 13-day countdown to Halloween, where every day I put up a new makeup look or a new true crime video. Today we will be talking about the CANDYMAN, also known as the man who killed Halloween. This particular true crime series on my channel is of course inspired by the one and only Queen Bailey Sarian, and I of course put a link to her channel in the description of every single one of these videos just to let y'all know. So today, because we will be talking about the CANDYMAN, we're going to be doing a candy look, so stay tuned for all of that. Now, there isn't a ton of information out there about this case. I mean, this case is pretty straightforward. It's like this happened and then this happened rather than a bunch of details and speculation. So since it's pretty straightforward, if you see me making like jumps to different parts of the makeup, it's just because I sat and worked on the makeup for a really long time, because the particular look that I'm doing is gonna take me a lot longer than it's going to take me to get through this case, and because it's serial killer focused, I will not be doing a tutorial per se, but everything that I use will be linked down below as in all of my videos. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Hold on, you know what we need to do, change into a tank top. Also, I'm going to be needing to cover my eyebrows, so we're covering one eyebrow. I think I'm just gonna cover one. Everybody say goodbye. Bye-bye. So the man who is also known as the CANDYMAN, his actual name is Ronald Clark O'Brien. And Ronald Clark O'Brien was born October 19th of 1944. He was married to Dayneen, and they had two beautiful children, Timothy, who was born in 1966, and Elizabeth, who was born in 1969. Ronald was an optician at Texas State Optical in Sharpstown, Texas, which was basically right outside of Houston, Texas, or is, not was. So the O'Brien family was just like a normal working class family, but not only was he an optician, but he was also deacon at the Second Baptist Church, not the first one, the second one, and he sang in the choir there. So this man had some pipes apparently, but this family was just like your average church-going American family. Now, everything that happened went down in '74 on Halloween night. And back in the 70s, there was just like an automatic trust that people had in each other. Like, as many of us know, back then, like, kids would go off and ride their bikes throughout town by themselves, really rode their bikes anywhere by themselves. Parents were a lot more comfortable leaving their kids unsupervised. Not sure that it actually was safer, but people were a lot less paranoid than they are now. Not like paranoid is a bad thing. I feel like there do be creepy people out there, so I understand why parents wouldn't want their kids to go out riding their bikes alone anymore. Anyways, I'm getting off topic, aren't I? But back then there was just kind of like a mutual trust that everybody had with each other. On Halloween, most of the time it would just be the kids going out by themselves and the parents just, be back later, bye. Like, they had a lot more faith in their community, the people around them, than we would today. So, in Halloween of 1974, Ronald calls up his friend Jim from work. He says, "Hey Jim," and Jim says, "Hey Ronald." Ronald says, "Do you want to take our kids out trick-or-treating together?" And Tim had two kids about Timothy and Elizabeth's age named Mark and Kimberly. And so Tim is like, yeah, that sounds great. Where do you want to meet up? And then Robert's like, I was thinking that we could just trick-or-treat in your neighborhood since, you know, your neighborhood is a little bit nicer. So they all meet up and start going around the neighborhood trick-or-treating. And this neighborhood was in Pasadena. So the fact that Ronald was willingly going to go trick-or-treating in Pasadena is a red flag. I'm just kidding. People in Pasadena, don't come for me. It's all jokes. So apparently, fun fact, Timothy was dressed as a character from Planet of the Apes. And so the kids are trick-or-treating, having lots of fun, as kids do when they're getting free candy. All of a sudden, they come across a house. Oh my god, a house? Trick-or-treating? I know. So they walk up to this house, even though the porch light's off. They don't know the rules. So the porch light of this house is off, and the kids walk up and they ring the doorbell. And then they ring the doorbell again because kids are a-holes. And they keep knocking and no one is answering. And so the kids, of course, getting impatient. They're like, this person isn't gonna like give us free candy that we did nothing to deserve. How dare they? So then the kids keep going. They're like, you know what, let's just go to the next house because candy. And so the kids do, and all of a sudden realize Ronald isn't with them. Where did Ronald go? So the kids aren't really fazed by the fact that their father isn't with them. They just keep going. A few houses later, Ronald catches up to them, and then, you know, I mean, the kids are just like, hey dad, what's up? And Ronald was all like, y'all should have stayed at that house and waited longer for someone to answer the door, because look what I got. I don't have any, but just like imagine. Look what I got. I got 5 huge pixie sticks and you don't have any. It's because I waited at that house while you left. He's a weird dad. So, you know, as any little butt munch would, the kids were upset and jealous, whatever. But they just keep on trick-or-treating because kids move on quickly. So they were like, the pixie sticks were apparently like 21 inches long. No kid needs that much sugar. At the end of the night, whenever they all decided to go their separate ways and go home, Ronald did end up giving each of the kids one. He had 5. He gave one to his son and his daughter, and then he gave one to his friend from work's son and daughter. So Ronald still had 1. So Ronald and his children are now home. And, you know, it's the end of the night, so it was pretty late, but I mean, the kids were just so excited about just getting all of this candy, like a kid would be. And so they were begging their dad to let them have at least 1 piece of candy. And then finally, Ronald was like, okay, fine. You guys can each pick 1 piece of candy to eat. So, being a normal kid, Timothy picks the huge pixie stick to eat right before bed. A pixie stick is literally a stick that is just sugar. Ronald's about to let his son have that right before bed. So Timothy picks out the pixie stick, and then Elizabeth doesn't pick out the pixie stick. I'm not really sure what she picked out, but her choice ended up saving her life. Timothy grabs his pixie stick out of his stash and he starts trying to get it open. And it's like stapled at the top. It's like a thick plastic and then it's stapled together at the top. Little Timothy could not get it open, so he had to ask his dad for help. So Ronald helps him get the candy open, then he helps Timothy eat it. So Ronald is like basically dumping it in Timothy's mouth, and then Timothy just goes like, ugh. You know, he's like, this is the worst pixie stick I've ever had, and he says it's bitter, it tastes gross, but he keeps on eating it because he's a child. But he told his dad that it was super bitter and gross, and his dad was like, here's some Kool-Aid to help you wash it down. So then Timothy drinks the Kool-Aid, which is even more sugar. And if I was the mother and I was like watching all of this happen, which I'm not sure where the mom was, but if I was watching all of this happen, I'd be like, he does not need that sugar. Dear Lord. Like, come on, Ronald. Not long after, Timothy runs into the bathroom and starts throwing up everywhere. He said his stomach hurt really bad and he started just puking everywhere. And then of course Ronald goes into the bathroom after him, and at this point Timothy starts convulsing and he actually goes limp in Ronald's arms. Ronald then calls 911 and the ambulance get there, but Timothy died before they even reached the hospital. He had died within an hour of eating the pixie stick. Now earlier that night, remember Ronald still had one pixie stick left? Well, earlier that night, a 10-year-old kid that Ronald had recognized from the church rang their doorbell and said trick or treat because it's still Halloween. And Ronald answers the door, recognizes the kid, and then hands him the last pixie stick. We have each of Ronald's kid has a pixie stick, his coworker, each of his kids has a pixie stick, and then another random kid from church that Ronald knew has the fifth pixie stick. So whenever Timothy gets to the hospital and everything, it doesn't take them very long to determine that it was probably a bad piece of candy or a poisoned piece of candy that someone did something to that had killed them. And word spread really fast and all of the parents immediately took all of their children's candy. And like, we all know that the parents were gonna steal their candy anyways, so. But as the police were looking into it, they actually asked people to bring in their kids' candy so that they could inspect them and try to determine what candy it was and to prevent other kids from this happening to them. Is that like still why parents steal kids' candy? They're just like, oh yeah, I'm testing it, making sure it's not poisoned. I see you. So it didn't take long for the police to figure out that it was the pixie sticks that had been tainted, because all of the parents turned in their kids' candy, so they were able to see that the pixie sticks were stapled together or like DIY'd. It looked like someone made them at home. It didn't look like it came from a factory. So they were able to track down every single pixie stick. After the police announced that it was pixie sticks, parents of the little boy from the church, they remembered that he brought home a huge pixie stick, and so they ran into his room and he was laying in bed asleep with the pixie stick in his hand. And of course this is gonna freak out any parent, but when they got over there, the pixie stick was unopened. He hadn't been able to actually get it open, so he never actually ate it, so he was perfectly safe. Each of the pixie sticks had enough potassium cyanide to kill 2 to 4 grown men. So no wonder little Timmy had such a bad reaction so fast. The police knew that everyone had pretty much gotten the pixie sticks from Ronald, and that Ronald had gotten them from a house, one of the neighborhoods. So the police go to Ronald and they ask him to show them which house they got the pixie sticks from, because I mean, they're trying to figure out who would try to poison just innocent kids on Halloween. Ronald straight up told the police that he didn't remember which house exactly it was that gave him the pixie sticks. So the police were like, we don't know how that's possible, but okay. They took him walking around the neighborhood seeing if they could jog his memory. He also told them that he didn't see anyone. He said that the door opened just enough for a hand to stick out and hand him the pixie sticks, and then it went away and closed the door. So he said that the hand was really hairy and that it was the hand of a man, but other than that he didn't see anything and he didn't remember anything else. So helpful. So the police started getting super suspicious of Ronald because they were like, how in the world do you not remember which house handed you these huge pixie sticks? I feel like anyone Like usually that'd be something that a person would remember, you know? You would definitely remember what area it was in, if not exactly which house. So the police started kind of looking at Ronald, and then Ronald caught on that the police were starting to suspect him. So then all of a sudden, like magic, Ronald remembers which house it was. So whenever Ronald told the police which house it was, the police were able to find the owner of that house, and the owner's name was Courtney Melvin, and he lived there with his wife and daughter. Of course, now the police are like, great, we got our guy. Like that was pretty quick. Let's book him and let's get this guy. But Mr. Melvin had a really solid alibi. He worked at the airport in Houston, and he had proof that he had been working late that night. Since he had been at work, the police turned to his wife and daughter, but there was absolutely no reason that the police could think of that the wife and daughter had for handing out these pixie sticks. But Ronald had been so persistent that it was a man's hand that handed him the pixie sticks. So that was just another reason that they didn't suspect the wife and daughter at all. And because this didn't work out as a possibility of where they got the pixie sticks, the police started looking back into Ronald. Honestly, at this point, who else could it have been? So Timothy's funeral was November 2nd, and remember, Timothy died on Halloween, so it was 2 days later. Relatives from the funeral noticed that Ronald was not particularly sad about Timothy's death. I mean, like, he was going through the motions and acting like he was sad, but he was telling everyone how he was going to be going on vacation and stuff, which was really weird to everyone. And he, because I told you earlier, he sang in the choir at his church. So he wrote a song for Timothy and sang a song, and he was mad at the relatives that like weren't there for it. And apparently they broadcasted Timothy's funeral on TV. Ronald was just mad at the family members that didn't stay up late and watch it, because he had a song and he wanted them to watch him sing his song. So he wasn't being like the concerned father trying to figure out who it was that did it, and he wasn't acting too mad or too sad about it. He was really mostly telling people like what all he was gonna do now with the insurance money. So when the police started looking into Ronald, they found an abundance of things. They figured out that Robert had 21 different jobs in the last 10 years, which I feel like it's more common to job hop now, but back then I feel like it was a lot less common. And I mean, that's still suspicious today, but back then that was like really sus, you know? So not only could he not hold a job very long, but the job that he was at, he was a suspect in stealing from his current job at Texas State Optical. Ronald was also over $100,000 in debt, and he had the family home foreclosed on. He defaulted on several bank loans, and his car was about to be repossessed. So let's just say that Ronald was losing everything basically, and he was also $100,000 in debt, which for the 1970s is impressive. Like, that's insane for back then. And then police got to the most suspicious part in all of this. Police found where in January of that year, Ronald had taken out 2 life insurance policies, one on each child. And in January, it was $10,000 for each kid, and then later in September, he went back and got it pushed up to $20,000 per kid. And then in October of that year, just a few days before all of this happened, he went and got it raised again to where he would get $60,000 per child. And apparently November 1st at 9 a.m. Ronald called the insurance agency of which he had the life insurances through and asked them about the payout and when he could come and collect it. And of course, knowing that Timmy had just died, they contacted the police, especially because this is the day after Timothy dies. A lot of kids get offended whenever their parents already have a plan for what they're gonna do with their kid's room when they move out. But just imagine your father killing you, and then at your funeral 2 days later, he's telling everyone about the vacation he's about to go on with the money. So right before they arrested Ronald, they actually ended up searching his house first, and guess what they found? You'll never guess. Hold on, I'll give you a second. They found scissors. Scissors, yeah, I know. Like snip snip, oh my god, wait. But apparently the scissors had a certain plastic residue on them, the same type of plastic that the pixie sticks were made out of. Now, I don't know if the police just like made all that up so that they could arrest him, but you know what, it's fine by me. Do what you gotta do, boo. It wasn't until May 5th of the next year that his trial actually started. So there was a man who came forward as a witness, not as a witness, just testifying against Ronald, and he, like some type of chemistry or scientist professor person, and he told everyone that he remembered Ronald asking him, what's a more lethal poison, cyanide or something else? And I mean, that's like a major red flag. There was a person who worked at a chemical company, and he went in and testified that Ronald had come into the chemical company and asked how much cyanide he could buy. They told him that they couldn't sell him as much cyanide as he wanted because you have to have like specific qualifications to get certain amounts of cyanide for a good reason. And so Ronald ended up just leaving, and this man said that he was wearing a blue smock as if it was a doctor, and that was his uniform because he was an optician. Ding ding ding, all signs point to Ronald. His co-workers ended up showing up and talking about how he had a weird obsession with cyanide, and his family members from the funeral showed up and told everyone about how he was acting at the funeral and how he only cared about them being there to hear him sing and not being there for Timothy. June 3rd of 1975, it only took the jury 46 minutes to come to the conclusion that Ronald indeed was guilty. So I absolutely hated the teeth, so I just spent forever trying to fix it. So that's great. Anyways, then the jury had to figure out his sentence, and it only took them 71 minutes to give him the death penalty. So he was guilty of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. His wife ended up filing for divorce, and then she moved on and got remarried, and the guy that she got married to legally adopted her daughter Elizabeth. So he was in the Huntsville unit in Huntsville, Texas, and that's where he was going to be executed, and all of the other prisoners on death row hated him. It takes a lot to have prisoners on death row hate you and shun you. This is from the people that worked at the prison that he was in. They said that the other people on death row absolutely shunned him and hated him. So for some reason, it took them a long time to actually schedule his execution, and they ended up pushing it back 3 different times for whatever reason. The last time that they pushed it back, he was gonna be executed October 31st on the 8th anniversary of little Timmy's death, and that I feel like would have been a good time to do it, you know? but then they ended up pushing it back. Right before he was gonna be injected, his last words were, "I forgive all and I do mean all, those who have been involved in my death. God bless you and may God's best blessings always be yours." He was also trying to say that he didn't agree with the death penalty and that he was against the death penalty, but he died anyways, so I don't think that the people cared. Everyone was mad at him for killing his own son just to get some money, and it's just crazy how desperate some people get to get money. Like, I completely understand like how stressful it is when you're in debt and all of these things are happening, but I feel like most people wouldn't even think about killing their kid. What are your thoughts? Up until his very last day here, he was still saying that he was innocent and he was still keeping his story straight, which a lot of people just kind of give up and say that they did it. Most of the cases I've come across, that's what happened, but he never did. He stuck with his story that he was innocent. So what do you think? Do you think that he was innocent and someone just gave him those pixie sticks to give to his kids? Or do you think it was all him? I think it was all him, because I mean, why would he be asking people about cyanide and talking about poison all the time? And his lethal injection was actually Texas's very first time using the death penalty. That's a very interesting fact for you. I think that is all that I have for you today. I hated the teeth, so I completely took it off and fixed it, and this took me way too long to do just for me to end up pretty much hating it, but you know, it's fine. We're gonna keep on going. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and hit the like button down below because I like it when you like it, and also hit the button to subscribe and become a part of my tribe. We are a bunch of people who like to get really pretty and then talk about things that are really ugly. So if you are into that kind of thing, then stick around, become a part of the family. Don't forget to follow me on all of my social medias. It is just Shellie G MUA on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Don't forget to enter my giveaway if you haven't already. It's over on Instagram. All you have to do is be following me on Instagram, subscribe to me here on YouTube, take a screenshot that you're subscribed, DM it to me on Instagram for proof. After that, every time you share one of my 31 days of Halloween pictures on Instagram to your Instagram story is an extra entry. So you can have a lot of extra entries. That's all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the story of the Candyman. In case you've ever wondered why your parents ask you to check your candy for needles or razors, or if they were open already when you were a kid, hopefully this answered your question. It was this very messed up guy. I will talk to you guys tomorrow because this is day 4, I believe. I don't know, all of my days are blurring together. Anyways, God bless, love you, bye.